Welcome to Chroniclove, a supportive space for people with chronic illness. I'm Robin, a psychologist in New York City navigating the fallout of a breast cancer diagnosis some years in. And I'm on a personal journey to join together with others who have similarly found themselves facing life challenges in the wake of chronic illness. Together, with the generous humans you're about to meet, we welcome you into our discussions. It was a 72-hour span from when you noticed your first symptoms to when you became paralyzed, right? So it was super quick onset. How far in would you say it was that you were still descending into your illness versus beginning to heal?
To recover, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say it was about 6 weeks before I had any signs of progress. So for about 6 weeks, it almost just seemed like I was just getting worse and worse up until then. "72 hours was breathing, went on a ventilator, breathing didn't improve, was almost getting worse. And so that's when they gave me a trach. And then from there, I just stayed the same. And my blood pressure was extremely high. My heart rate was like very dangerously high. My pain levels were very high, and I was just completely paralyzed. So the paralysis at one point, like it spread so badly and up to my face that I couldn't even move my mouth, my eyes. I could barely even blink or move them. So that was probably the darkest period, because it was like, am I going to be in a coma, or like, am I going to be frozen and locked in my body, but still able to understand what's going on? So
Yes.
that was terrifying. But I was very fortunate that the paralysis in my face only lasted a few days and then it faded. I was able to move my head slightly. I was able to blink. I was able to smile. Not that I was doing much smiling, but I was able to kind of make those movements for another probably month. No ability to move my hands, arms, legs, or anything like that. So just stuck in my body. As I started to recover, the breathing was the first part. Oh, it was probably 8 weeks worth of weaning off the ventilator. And we started with 30 seconds, I think, and then gradually just increasing that time. So every day we did a little bit longer and longer. And I remember at the beginning, I remember thinking like, this is impossible. I'm never going to be able to learn how to breathe on my own again. I'm going to depend on this machine forever. And it was so hard and it was so scary, but I promised myself that I would try. And every time I did it, lasted like 15 seconds longer. And then gradually over time, it increased to minutes and then hours. And they were telling me like, yeah, once you're able to breathe on your own for more than 48 hours, they'll take out the trach. And so I just need to get to 48 hours and then I can get the trach out and then I can get out of ICU. And then life is going to be so much better. I got out of ICU. And I was moved over to a neurology ward. That's when, things really took a turn for the better. I was regaining a little bit of movement by that point. So it started in my fingertips, and then it was like my wrists could move, and then a little bit of my hands. So it was mostly upper body. I could move my shoulders around, learning how to hold cutlery and how to hold forks and feed myself, and then how to hold cups, and learning how to eventually like hold my daughter and hold her in my arms, which was huge. And then being able to kind of just clutch the bottle in my arms and be able to feed her again was huge. Eventually my legs, finally, they were the last thing to kind of come back. And so then my toes started moving. I could wiggle them. And I think that's a really important thing to remember for anybody going through GBS, is just reminding yourself like those little improvements, they may feel tiny, but they're huge. And so we celebrated every single tiny toe wiggle and finger movement. And the first time that I was able to lift my foot off the bed an inch, it is all these tiny little accomplishments along the way over months and months of hard work, intense physiotherapy, intense exercises, and and strength training to regain that strength until that I could finally eventually stand. I stood for the first time for 15 seconds. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And physiotherapists held me up and then sat me back down. And eventually I was strong enough. My torso was strong enough where I could sit in a wheelchair. And that was hard work. There was always that fear in the back of my head, like, am I going to be able to get strong? I do know that not everybody does recover from Guillain-Barré syndrome. There are a portion of people that are left in wheelchairs or some sort of walking aids. And so there was always that fear, but I pushed through the fear anyways, continued working on my therapy as much as I could, and eventually learned how to walk with a walker, take some steps. Gradually, just like breathing, I slowly got a little bit stronger, a little bit faster. And I walked with a walker for several weeks and then gradually learned how to walk with a cane. And then eventually I learned how to walk completely on my own.
It's interesting because, most able-bodied people, adults, like take these things for granted. And it's not until you've been through something like this that you realize that we can't always take these things for granted. And these efforts that you described just sound like such superhuman efforts.
Yes, they were. And that's what it felt like at the moment. I remember even back in ICU, I just felt guilty for not taking advantage of everything that I could possibly do and for just not realizing like how fortunate we are to be able to use our body. For example, like learning how to eat on my own. And the first time that I was able to feed myself was so huge. And the first time even changing my daughter's diaper, like I remember because I couldn't do it for so long. And then I didn't have coordination. I didn't have dexterity. The fine motor skills were really difficult for me to do for a long time. And so the very first time that I was able to like wrap the diaper around her and fasten it, it was like, oh my God, it was so exciting. Once I was able to start doing these things again, it was just such a gratitude for being able to take after my child and take after myself and just do the everyday functions that you just take for granted. I promised myself when I was in ICU that when I got better, you know what, I'm going to do these things that I always said that I wanted to do. And I'm going to travel more. I'm going to use my body more. And so after I recovered and after I was doing so much better, I started exercising. And since then, I mean, I've climbed mountains, I've ran in 10K runs, and it's always because I've gone back to that breathing of what I felt like that was impossible. And then I did it. So let's just see what else I can do.
If you're watching this and resonating with any of this, we just want you to know that you're not in this alone, that you're never in this alone.
Until next time, sending love.
Until next time, sending love. If any of this has been helpful for you, we welcome you to go ahead and to click the like and subscribe buttons. If you'd like to join us for a candid discussion about your experience with chronic illness, or if you'd like to connect to simply say hello, we welcome you to reach out through any of the social media platforms or through our website, and all of our information is listed below.